All right, kids. Well, adults, really. I'm going to start this series here, Guns for Liberals, America. Um, because I've seen a lot of questions flying around lately, and I think, um, a lot of people are starting to look into if gun ownership is right for them, and I think it doesn't really matter your political persuasion. This is a presentation for you, but specifically, since I have a lot of friends who are liberal, it is something that I wanted to address directly to them. Uh, there's different worldviews and different headspaces, and guns are something that kind of are a polarizing topic, and so I want to speak to a lot of the not necessarily concerns, but a lot of the issues that might come up in the minds of liberal people who are considering guns, but maybe are wrestling with the fact that they didn't come from a background where guns were a thing, or maybe guns were totally against what their parents preached, or something like that. Where this is a new concept that's just creeping into relevance. And so this series, Guns for Liberals, Murica, I have one main priority, right? I feel like a teacher without an overhead presenting system here. My priorities are to have you be safe. As you may have guessed by now, guns are objects that can be used and misused in dangerous ways that cause harm not only to the people they're directed towards, or perhaps their intended target, but also the people who hold them. It's not always the case that your gun is something that produces only positive results. I mean, certainly if you are at a shooting range, and you follow all the safety procedures, absolutely, right? Like, it's very unlikely anyone's going to get hurt there. But in real life, once you start concealed carrying, it's a totally different ballgame, because you may win whatever fight you end up in, and hopefully you never do. But then the court cases start, and that's when your life changes forever. So safety is both a technical, literal thing where we're talking about, how do you store guns? How do you use them? Things like that. What not to do. It also has a lot of political implications with check your local laws, right? Like, there may be situations where you can, and maybe situations where you can't. And I think once we get into that, you're going to find that it's rather confusing, and that maybe some of these laws are not written with necessarily your best interests in mind. So safety in all domains, both physical safety as well as legal and political. So what I want to start with is kind of an introduction to the guns themselves. This may be your first foray into thinking about actually owning one. It may be your 50th, who knows? But there's a lot of jargon out there. There's a lot of brands. There's a lot of tech terms. And I want to sort out some of the more common ones so that you are prepared when you go into the marketplace to both do your research as well as purchase. Right. And oh man, you can see right through that. Well, pretend you can't see through this white sheet and that it's obscuring things extremely well. So the common brands and models. Okay. You have heard the word Glock, right? It's actually kind of an awful word, and in my opinion, I won't go there. But Glock is not a designator of anything other than the manufacturer of many different models of firearms. So that's like saying a Toyota, right? And in many ways, Glock is equivalent to Toyotas. They are woefully uninteresting, mind-numbingly reliable, ubiquitous, and priced manageably, but slightly expensive. So, when we talk about Glock, primarily when it comes to, you know, most people, and again, in the world of the gun space, you're going to have people who, just like with any hobby or anything that involves consumerism, there's going to be endless customization, endless model names, makes, etc. So we're just going to stick to the meat and potatoes. Even this is a little much. The common Glocks that you will see are the Glock 17, 19, 43, 26, and 42. You don't have to remember any of that. You could do a screenshot if you really feel like it, but basically, the 17 is what you see cops with because it's a full-size duty pistol, right? And we're going to get into the sizes in a little bit. The 19 set the standard for what is called a compact, or in this case, about as big as you're going to want to carry daily. 43, 26, and 42 are smaller guns for carrying with more ease with various different calibers, and we're going to get into that later too. But these are the ones you're going to see the most. One of them will probably fit you. Now, if you're like me and you don't particularly like how a Glock feels, or you have something against Austrians, I can think of one Austrian in particular that I really, really wish never existed. Can you think of one, an Austrian that you wish didn't exist? I can. In that case, you might want to choose something a little more American there, like our friends at Smith and Wesson, Wesson, not Weston, like the hotel. So, in Smith and Wesson's lineup, you are going to find the Shield Plus, a smaller offering, the Bodyguard, in this case, Bodyguard 2.0. That is a very small gun that would fit in your pocket. The M&P 2.0, that stands for Military and Police. It's a line that goes back all the way to revolvers. And the old standby revolver, the J frame. J designates a size of frame for the revolver. So it just means small, right? And we'll get into what all the sizes are in a little bit. Just know that Glock, Smith & Wesson, this is Toyota, right? This is also Toyota. Maybe this is Honda, right? Or Ford, or take your pick. Like, we're not making quality comparisons because all of these are relatively the same. I wouldn't recommend something that sucks, right? So those are the offerings from Smith & Wesson that you can expect to see. SIG, SIG. I know. You've heard about it. The P320. Not only have you heard about it in the news for randomly going off and shooting officers and citizens in the leg for no apparent reason, but you've also heard about it with Daniel. Is his name Daniel? The fellow who is the nurse for the VA up in Minnesota. He had a P320 on him, and it is it's a gun with a lot of controversy around it now. But SIG offers several different varieties of guns. I have listed only three here. The 226, famous for use by the Navy SEALs, and the P365, which comes in 4 or 5 different variants for whatever your. I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of flavors of customization you can do with SIG. You can spend from here till next Sunday. All right, Springfield. Now, you may have heard of Springfield Armory, and that was an armory that used to manufacture as well as repair, etc., design, test weapons for the United States military since time immemorial, almost to the founding of the nation. It is not that. This is a company that bought the name after the arsenal went out, the armory rather, went out of service. And so now there is a private company that trades on the name Springfield. They make something called a Hellcat. which comes in several different sizes, a small one, and a kind of medium one. I have shot every gun on this list multiple times, and I can tell you that so far, I don't really have a preference. I would interchange any of these happily, depending on circumstances, and I would trust my life to any of them. But since I am particular, and those of you that know me know that everything's got to be just so, right? CZ or CZ. All right. So CZ, which sounds like it should be a longer name, but no, it's just 2 letters. I mean, it means there's something in Czech but I don't speak Czech, so who cares? The model that I prefer is the P01, and I like it because of the way it feels in my hand. That is important to me. It may not be important to you, but the P01, the P07, and the P10 are all excellent pistols that I think are spectacular. If you're a beginner, I wouldn't necessarily choose them. There's nothing wrong with them. You absolutely can have a great time and should enjoy them at your leisure. But, you know, these are guns where you're starting to get into, a certain level of commitment to this hobby where you really have preferences, right? And of course, the Shadow is a series of guns which are basically for competition, racing, and things like that. Yeah, there's gun races. I know it sounds weird. No, you don't run down the track with a gun, but there is some running involved. So CZ, one of my favorite companies. They also own Colt, which you may have heard of. Colt, notably absent from this list for good reason, and many more. There are plenty. There are as many gun companies as there are, I don't know, boutique sock makers or whatever. Like, pick anything, right? There's a gajillion of them. Some of them are excellent, right? But the price to value relationship, sometimes you get into stuff where it's $5,000 for a very specific thing that does one thing exceptionally well, right? Just like anything else, right? You've got your Formula One cars and they race real fast, but they take a lot to maintain. Other times you've got ones that are basically pigs that'll just slog through mud and do pretty much anything because they were designed for it, but they're not great at any one thing. So, choose accordingly. You can go to your local range, have conversations there, right? That is a great place to not only get good information, but also get terrible information. So I would suggest that you try as many guns as possible. To do that in Illinois, you will need something called a firearm owner's ID card, FOID, which you can apply on the Illinois State Police website for. Upload a picture of yourself as well as some information. And since Illinois is a shall issue state, that means that unless you've got some kind of violent felony or something like that, or have been involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility in the past 5 years or so, you will receive in a couple of weeks your identification card in the mail. But in the interim, you will be able to log on to the Illinois State Police website and use your digital one to go to any store and handle weapons. Without it, you're toast, brother. Onwards. Yes, I know. It is a constitutional right, and it is very strange that you need a permission slip for it. Interesting. I know. Interesting. So let's talk about some sizes, okay? No surprise here. Sizes. All right. Hope everyone's still with me here. Full size or duty size. Please take a moment to laugh at the word duty. It's very funny. The Glock 17, right, is a duty pistol. It's great for all manner of duties that you may need to perform. Frankly, I can't think of a duty that it wouldn't be good for, especially heavy duty or really long duties. But essentially, what that means is you're going to have a barrel, right? That's like 5 inches long, maybe 4.5, something like that. It's going to have capacity from anywhere from 17 to 20 some odd rounds. So that's 17 to 20 of these guys in there, ready to rock, to send some freedom downrange at whatever you so desire. This is very common with police and military. You'll see it on countless belts, on countless blue or black clad men around the world, and some women. It is the full size pistol, and it's generally not something you're going to carry around every day as a citizen because it's a huge pain in the ass, and it flops around and it's heavy. So what most people do is they start from the next size category down, compact or mid-size. Less funny, doesn't have the word duty in it. But as you might have guessed, Glock has another offering there, the Glock 19. If we look at our prior list, there's actually several more. Like, for example, the 320, the M&P 2.0, the none of those. I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so compact is only compact by comparison to full size. It is by no stretch of the imagination actually small, right? This is a full grip. Your full hand is on it. It's about as small as you can do and still get all the work done you need to at distance, but without being such a huge pain in the ass. You know, it's like 3.25, 3.5 to 4 inch barrel, right? That means it's like slightly shorter overall. The hand grip's going to be a little shorter, so you're going to be looking at like 15 rounds max, maybe 17, right? And on the older models, you know, like 7 or 10. You're not going to be buying those, so don't worry. So this is what I carry, is a compact size pistol. The Glock 19, which is probably the most common pistol in the entire world. Everybody from, I would say, like 2010 special forces through the 2020s to many police units to personal protection. You know, I mean, it's everywhere, and people go bananas over it. It is the standard, right? So it's the bar by which you measure everything else. There's nothing terribly exciting about it, right? But the Glock 19, if you need to buy a gun for home defense or whatever, solid choice. Home defense, it can also be carried around with you if you're a fella of, you know, a certain stature, probably like 5'8" and above. You'll probably get away with concealing that on your body. If you're shorter than that, I would suggest maybe pick something slightly smaller. It's going to be a little easier to conceal. So remember, our concern here as citizens is not, can we shoot off 22 rounds and scare the shit out of everybody? It's, can we carry this thing around comfortably all day so that we will carry it around comfortably all day, right? You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And that means you're going to have to find something that works for you, that you can shoot, that you will actually wear. Size is a very important component of that. Now, this is where the size to effectiveness trade-off starts to creep in, right? We're looking at something that's pretty much full performance. You're not losing much between these two. Pretty concealable if you're of a certain size. And you're not going to have any trouble gripping it, right? Like your hands are going to be fully on there. Whereas the next ones, subcompact, like the Glock 26. A lot of Glock on this list, I know. The Glock 26 is going to be smaller, right? It's going to be a little slimmer. It's also going to be, you might have your pinky hanging off the end of it. Now, there are extended magazines for it, but in the state of Illinois, you can't own, well, you can own, you can't carry a pistol with a magazine over 15 rounds. And if you are in the city of Chicago, 10 rounds. But since the supremacy of the state law overrules Chicago, you probably could still do 15 in the city of Chicago, but I'm not really going to hang around and find out. So subcompact, the Glock 26 would be that frame size. You're looking at anywhere from about 11 to 15 rounds. That's pretty good. A lot of 13 rounders there. The SIG P365 XL fits in this category as well. The 365 is a modular series, so there's a lot of different options for the grip and other things like that, which make it pretty versatile. So you could build one of those out for just about any size person and they'll be happy. Now, below subcompact, we got the micro compact. Okay. Now, the king of the castle here, as far as popularity wise, is the straight up regular old SIG P365. I think it's 11 rounds, right? Which is incredible. That like broke the mold. And it set the standard for all these two. The Springfield Hellcat, the CZ P10M, right? The P10 comes in like 4 different sizes. The M is the tiny one. And, this is a really concealable size. I personally really enjoy it. It's a little snappy, right? Because the 9mm's got a little bit of kick in a tiny gun that doesn't weigh very much. But then again, you're looking at something that's like, I don't know, 19 ounces or something like that. It's tiny. It weighs nothing. So, this is a category where you find a lot of smaller frame people really enjoying these because it's a great fit for smaller hands. For me, I'm losing a pinky fully off of one of those without an extended magazine. But this is perfectly concealable on almost any body size, and I think they make excellent tools. And of course, the last is the Springfield Bodyguard, or not Springfield, the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0. It is a gun that shoots a smaller round, which we'll get into in just a minute. And honestly, if you're a guy, you can fit it in the front pocket of your jeans or the back pocket, or choose a pocket, maybe nature's pocket. However you choose to store it, it's quite small. It weighs very little. You can fit it in a suit pocket or whatever. It is a little snappy because the weight of it is so low and the size is small. So it's a little difficult to control. You're probably not going to be shooting long range with these guys. You can if you're patient, but this might not be something that you want to carry around, if the probability of getting into a conflict at any range is even remotely possible. This is a close-in tool, right? These are things where you're making a decision based on your attire, your comfort, and realistically what you think the threats may be in that area, right? And that's a whole other group of psychological questions that we don't really need to get into right now. So, that all being said, I'm going to take a quick sip here. We're going to talk about the common calibers. Now, I don't want you to get too worked up about this, right? I don't want you to think this is crucial, in a way that's like going to be as difficult as memorizing geometry proofs, right? Like there's no test. You're basically going to end up with a 9mm gun. I'm just going to tell you that right off the top. But there are other calibers available for when you get curious, or if your needs are, say, for example, to have a lighter shooting round because you have limited grip, whatever, right? Let's talk about it. So, Calibers are described in two ways, either in imperial measurement, where we go tenths, hundredths, thousandths of an inch. So these are thousandths, right? THS, or in millimeters. What's ironic is that almost never are they what they're named. So it's rare that you'll actually encounter a caliber that's the size it says it is. This is a tradition that dates back to forever, and I'm not really sure why. It just seems like, why make it simple, right? When we could make it confusing. So let's go over it. I'm sure you've read it by now. You got your 9mm. Sorry, I'm looking at the viewfinder here. 9mm is the most common. 10mm, a lot less common unless you're in bear country, in which case this boy reigns supreme for the automatic self-loading pistols. Terminology we'll explain at some other date. 380. This is what the Bodyguard 2.0 uses. It is a smaller, less powerful round that I would say is perfectly adequate for up-close encounters, given the right ammunition, good technique, and a lot of luck. 357 Magnum. Well, I'll put it to you this way. This will make a lot of things dead very fast. It's it's a round that's used in revolvers. SIG made one called the 357 SIG to be used in auto loading pistols, which is not an automatic pistol. It's just loads itself every time you pull the trigger. We'll get into that another day. This generally has a lot more power than the 9mm while being approximately the same size projectile. Then we have 40 caliber, 45 caliber, and 38. Now, 38 special. This is a revolver round, much like the 357 Magnum. In fact, you could buy a 357 Magnum revolver and shoot 38 special on it. The reverse is not true unless you want to have one of those banana peel guns like in the cartoons. 38, 380, boy, they sure do look similar, but I tell you, you don't want to mix those two up. That is a thing that happens when people go buy ammunition. They'll ask for one thing because they see the numbers are the same, and they'll get something totally wrong. So that's important if you're buying 380 or 38 special revolver. Otherwise, you'll probably be okay. So here's our inch to metric chart here. On the left side here, I've put the caliber, and I've given you the exact measurement in inches down to the thousandth of an inch, and then the millimeter size. And you're going to see that nothing makes sense. Up is down, and it's a confusing world, so why bother? So 380. 380 is called 380 ACP, which stands for Automatic Colt Pistol, as in the company Colt. Back in the early days, there were many ammunition manufacturers, and so names got applied to them based on who designed it and what pistol it was for. So 380 ACP is 0.355 inches, right? Not 380. Not even close. 0.355. And it is 9.02 millimeters. So not even a 9mm. How confusing. Because the 9mm, curiously enough, is 0.355 inches. Isn't that weird? I wonder how that works. It is also 9.01 to 02 millimeters. So why is it called 9mm? Yeah, I know. 357 Magnum is, as named, delightfully so, 0.357 inches, okay? And that is 9.07 to 9.1 millimeters. Are you noticing a trend? Are you noticing something here that's a trend? Because I am. The 38 Special. Interestingly enough, look at that. .357, 9.07 and 9.1 millimeters. Curious. Seems to be a lot of 9 here and a lot of 3.5 something here. Wonder why that is. Okay. Oh, you got a sneak preview. You dog. 10 millimeters. Now here is where we get into nope, just kidding. It's not actually 10 millimeters either. So the 10 millimeter, this came out in, I think the 80s in response to the North Hollywood shootout. Correct me if I'm wrong. I probably am. But they felt like, hey, man, our guns just aren't doing enough. So the FBI was like, hey, man, let's do this 10 millimeter, right? This is an ass kicker of a round. It is 0.400 to 0.001 thousandths, so 4/10ths of an inch. What that is in fractional, I don't know. No one cares. 10.16 to 10.2 millimeters. Now, this is going to flip your lid because 40 caliber, look at this. .40 Smith & Wesson is the name of this one. And it came out after the FBI agents found that, this is an awfully hot round, and we sure would like it if, maybe it wasn't so hot. We didn't have so much recoil, so our wrists weren't snapping back all the time. So he came out with the .40 Smith & Wesson, also named short and weak, because it is merely, this round, shortened with less powder. 400 thousandths of an inch. Calibers, starting to get it, right? And the 45, this is also known as the Lord's caliber, for good reason, because we're talking about 45 ACP, automatic Colt pistol, so named for the 1911 pistol, designed by John Moses Browning, the godfather of everything good and right with this world that involves weapons. He was working on a design that was licensed out to Colt to produce for the U.S. Army. The cavalry didn't like in the Philippine-American War that their .38s revolvers didn't seem to be taking down the Moro warriors. And the cavalry had a preference for the .45 Colt revolver round based on a lot of tradition all the way back to the 1860s. Now, that's irrelevant because we're talking about 1911 and onward. The .45 is 0.451 to 452, so that's a nearly half an inch of ass headed down range at 850 feet per second, and that's 11.48 to 11.5 millimeters. The size difference, I would say, pretty staggering. Here's your 9 millimeter. Here's your 45. Yeah, right? Like, who do you want on your side? Now, of course, the Moro warriors were not indestructible. The .38 was not the issue. They were, in fact, wearing some traditional body armor and were pretty fucking skinny, so they were hard to shoot. So, where history and mythology combined, you get lore. And guns are full of lore. There's so much of it that it's going to be hard to sort out what's true and what's not. I would say 80% of it's bullshit, but it's very fun bullshit. It's like any other hobby, right? You have a lot of nerds who are technical, a lot of old guys who've been through it, have very good points, but may not necessarily have the newest science. And you have everybody else in between who heard a story from somebody who sounded convincing on a forum and just went with it. There's very few actual experts. But when you find them, hold on to them. So, in closing, Guns for Librulz, Murica, video 1. We talked about different offerings from different brands. All of the ones I suggested to you are perfectly reliable. Well, not perfect, nothing's perfect, but very reliable. in the 99.999 whatever with good maintenance percent reliable. You are more likely to fail than the gun. We talked about these sizes of the frames so that you can choose something that fits your body size, your capabilities, your concealability needs, as well as your lifestyle, because compliance is what matters. If you don't carry a gun and you need a gun, you're shit out of luck. Good luck having a knife fight. The only winner in a knife fight is nobody. Actually, nobody wins in a knife fight. You may survive, but you'll die in the ambulance on the way to the hospital while the other guy dies right there. Don't get in knife fights. That's why we have guns. Talked about frame sizes, and then we talked about different calibers, where I said, don't pay any attention to all this bullshit. It's just for fun. 9mm is probably what you're going to choose anyway, unless you're a very particular person and you like have super small hands or whatever, and you want to try the 380. That's great. That's fine. I wouldn't suggest it as your first gun because this is everywhere. It's dirt cheap, etc. So, that having been said, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Be square.